The rain hammered against the windows of St. Vincent's Hospital in Portland, creating a hypnotic rhythm that echoed through the white corridors. Michael Anderson adjusted his tie for the 10th time that morning, a nervous habit he had developed. Over the past 7 months, at 42, he had always been a man of absolute control. His technology companies thrived precisely because of his ability to predict every market movement, every strategic decision. But there, sitting in the uncomfortable chair next to bed 304, he was just a desperate father. Emily slept, or rather remained in a vegetative state as the doctors insisted on correcting him. Her 8 years of age seemed suspended in time, her angelic face framed by brown curls that Michael obsessively arranged every day. The machines around her emitted constant mechanical sounds, beep, 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 a cruel soundtrack for this theater of hope and despair. "Mr. Anderson?" The soft voice of Nurse Carol pulled him from his thoughts. "The doctor would like to speak with you." Michael rose slowly, his joints protesting against the long hours in the same position. He had lost weight, his expensive suits now hung loosely on his body. He followed Carol down the hallway, passing other rooms where other families lived, their own silent nightmares. Dr. Mark Richards was waiting for him in his office, glasses resting on his forehead and wearing an expression that Michael knew all too well. "Michael, we need to talk. If you're going to tell me I should consider other options, I don't want to hear it." Michael's voice came out harsher than he intended. "It's not that. This week's tests showed that Emily's condition remains stable. That's positive. It means there's no deterioration. But there's no improvement either." Michael sank into the chair. 7 months, doctor. 7 months and she remains the same." Dr. Richards sighed. "The brain is a complex organ. Sometimes recovery happens in unpredictable ways, but I need to be honest with you. It's important that you maintain realistic expectations." Michael clenched his fists. Realistic expectations. As if a father's love could be measured by medical statistics. "She's going to wake up. I know she will. I understand your faith and I don't want to take that away from you, but I also can't feed false hopes." When he left the office, Michael felt the familiar weight of frustration. He returned to Emily's room, resuming his vigil. Evening was falling over Portland, tinting the sky with a melancholic pink that contrasted with the sterile white of the hospital. "Hi, Princess." Michael held the small, cold hand of his daughter. "Daddy's here, as always." His words echoed in the silence, mixing with the sound of the machines. "It rained a lot today. You always liked watching the rain through the window, remember? You'd count the drops on the glass." A tear slipped down his face. It wasn't the first breakdown, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. Since the accident, Michael had learned that the pain didn't diminish. It just changed shape, adapted, found new places to lodge in his chest. The accident. He tried not to think about it, but the images returned like ghosts. The wet road, the other car that ran the red light, the sound of metal deforming. He had emerged virtually unscathed, just a few scratches. Emily in the back seat, protected by her car seat, had taken the impact that would change their lives forever. "I'm sorry, Princess. I'm sorry Daddy couldn't protect you." Night arrived slowly, bringing with it the familiar ritual. Michael asked for a blanket to be brought and settled into the armchair next to the bed. The hospital offered a room for companions, but he preferred to stay there, where he could hear each of his daughter's breaths, monitor every change in her condition. Around 2 in the morning, something strange happened. The hospital lights began to fail. First they flickered, then went out completely. The emergency generators should have taken over immediately, but there was a delay of almost 10 minutes. Michael awoke in the dark, hearing only the sound of rain outside and the beeps of Emily's machines. Strange, the machines were still working, but everything else was dark. When the lights came back on, Michael felt something different in the air, a subtle energy, almost imperceptible. He looked at Emily and for a moment had the impression that she was smiling. Just a twitch of facial muscles, perhaps, but something inside him stirred. The night shift nurse appeared shortly after, checking the equipment. "How strange," she murmured. The equipment in this wing continued to function even with the power outage. That shouldn't happen. Michael didn't respond, but continued observing his daughter's face. There was something different there, a serenity that didn't exist before. Maybe it was just his imagination working against him, fueled by exhaustion and desperate hope. But that night, for the first time in months, Michael slept deeply, still holding Emily's hand. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us what city you're watching from. Will continue. The days followed their cruel and monotonous routine. Michael woke up at 6 in the morning in his Pearl District penthouse, drank coffee he couldn't taste, and drove to the hospital. His companies continued to function, thanks to the dedication of his team and the automated systems he had implemented over the years. But his heart was no longer in business. It was there, in that sterilized room, waiting for a miracle that science insisted on denying. On the third night after the strange blackout, Michael had the first dream. He was in Emily's room, but the atmosphere was different, warmer, enveloped by a golden light that didn't come from the fluorescent lamps. Next to the bed, a man stood. He wasn't a doctor or nurse. His clothes were simple, worn by time and weather. His face was partially in shadow, but Michael could see his eyes, deep, serene, carrying an ancient compassion. The man didn't speak. He just extended his hand over Emily's forehead, and an inexplicable calm took over the environment. In the dream, Michael tried to approach, but his legs wouldn't obey. He wanted to ask who this man was, what he was doing there, why his presence brought so much comfort, but the words wouldn't come out. He awoke with a start, his heart racing. The hospital room was immersed in the typical pre-dawn dimness, only the equipment lights blinking in their constant rhythms. Emily remained motionless, breathing softly. Michael ran his hand over his sweaty face and tried to convince himself it was just stress. Dr. Richards had mentioned that prolonged periods of tension could cause hallucinations and vivid dreams. But the next night, the dream repeated. The same man, the same posture, the same sense of peace that contrasted with the anxiety Michael carried while awake. This time he managed to observe the details better. The calloused hands, the unkempt graying beard, the worn shoes. There was something familiar about that face, as if he knew him from some distant memory. "Who are you?" Michael managed to articulate in the dream. The man turned slowly, and his lips moved without sound, but somehow Michael understood. Someone who understands pain. "For God's sake, Michael, you need to get proper rest." His sister Julie had arrived from Seattle that morning, finding him with deep circles under his eyes and trembling hands. "When was the last time you slept at home?" "I can't leave her alone." "She's not alone. There's an entire team taking care of her." Julie firmly held his shoulders. "And what good does it do if you get sick too?" Michael knew his sister was right. He had lost more than 20 pounds, was constantly irritated, and had developed a chronic headache. But how could he explain that, strangely, those dreams were the only thing that brought him any comfort? In them, Emily seemed protected, cared for by a presence that radiated kindness. "Did the doctors say anything new?" Julie asked, pulling up a chair to sit beside the bed. "Nothing. Stable condition, no improvements, no deterioration." The words came out bitter. "Sometimes I get the impression they've already given up on her." "Don't talk like that. Dr. Richards has an excellent reputation." Michael didn't respond. He observed his daughter's face, looking for signs that only a father would be able to detect. In recent days, he had noticed small changes, almost imperceptible, but present. Her breathing seemed more regular, her facial expressions more relaxed. When he mentioned this to the doctors, he was treated as if it were wishful thinking. "Michael," Julie touched his arm, "I need to tell you something. The company is going through difficulties. Not serious ones, but some clients are concerned about your absence. Mark called yesterday, said they need some urgent decisions. The company. For years it had been his life, his identity. Now it seemed like something abstract, distant. Mark can handle it. He has power of attorney for everything. He has power of attorney for operational issues, But there are some strategic decisions that only you can make. Michael sighed. Life out there continued, demanding his attention, while he was trapped in this limbo of hope and despair. I'll see what I can do. That night, Julie insisted that he go home. Just one night. Take a decent shower, eat a real meal, sleep in your own bed. Reluctantly, Michael agreed. At home, the silence was deafening. The house that was once filled with Emily's laughter, her drawings scattered on the table, her toys on the floor, now seemed like a mausoleum. He took a hot shower, trying to relax the tension accumulated in his muscles, and lay down in his king-size bed that had never seemed so large and empty. The dream came more intensely than ever. The man was there, but this time Michael managed to approach him. He could feel the warmth emanating from his hands, an almost palpable energy that enveloped Emily like an invisible blanket. "She'll be all right," said the man, and his voice was hoarse, marked by difficult experiences. "But it's not time yet." "When will it be time?" Michael implored. "When you're ready to accept that not everything can be controlled, that there are forces in this world greater than contracts and spreadsheets." Michael woke up with tears on his face. It was 5 in the morning. He dressed quickly and drove back to the hospital, feeling an inexplicable urgency. When he arrived, he found unusual activity in the pediatric wing. Nurses were talking in groups, security guards circulating through the corridors. "What's happening?" he asked Carol. "A homeless man managed to get in during the night," she replied quietly. "Nobody knows how he was in the pediatric wing when we discovered him. Very strange." Michael's heart raced. Could it be possible? Michael practically ran through the hospital corridors, his heart beating erratically. The nurse's description echoed in his mind. A homeless man in the pediatric wing during the early morning hours. It would be too much of a coincidence. "Where is he now?" he asked breathlessly when he reached the nurse's station. "Security already removed him from the building," Carol replied, still agitated. "It was very strange, Mr. Anderson. He seemed to know exactly where he was going. He didn't appear confused or drugged, as usually happens in these cases." "What did he look like? Can you describe him?" Carol frowned. "About 50 years old, graying beard, very worn clothes. But what caught my attention most were his eyes. Very serene, as if he carried her ancient wisdom. Why the interest?" Michael didn't respond immediately. How could he explain that he had dreamed about this man for 3 consecutive nights? "Just curious. I'm going to check on Emily." When he entered room 304, he immediately felt that something was different. The air seemed lighter, permeated by a tranquility that didn't exist before. Emily remained in the same position, but there was a subtle change in her expression, a deeper serenity, as if she had gone through a comforting experience. Michael approached the bed and held his daughter's hand. "Hi, Princess. Daddy's here." For the first time in months, his voice didn't carry the usual weight of desperation. There was something different, a hope he couldn't explain. Dr. Richards appeared about an hour later, carrying a folder with test results. "Michael, I need to show you something interesting." "Interesting how?" Emily's brain activity tests from early this morning showed some unusual spikes. Nothing dramatic, but definitely different from the pattern we've been observing. Michael felt a wave of emotion. "Does that mean she's improving?" "It means something stimulated her neural activity. It could be anything. A dream, a reaction to some medication, even changes in atmospheric pressure. I don't want to create false expectations, but it's the first positive sign we've seen in months." "What time did this happen?" Dr. Richards consulted his papers. "Between 2 and 3 in the morning." "Why?" "Exactly the time when the homeless man was in the hospital." Michael felt a shiver run down his spine. "Just trying to understand better." The rest of the day passed in a fog of anxious expectation. Michael couldn't concentrate on anything beyond those brain activity spikes and the description Carol had given of the intruder. When night came, he was determined to stay awake, watching every movement in the corridors. Around 1 in the morning, he saw him, a figure walking slowly down the corridor, passing unnoticed by security as if he were invisible. Michael recognized him immediately. It was the man from his dreams. He wore the same worn clothes, had the same serene posture, the same deep eyes. Silently left the room and followed the man at a safe distance. To his surprise, he headed directly to room 304. Michael watched him stop in front of the door, close his eyes for a moment, as if mentally preparing for something important. "Excuse me," Michael said softly, approaching. The man turned without showing surprise, as if he expected this encounter. Up close, Michael could confirm every detail from his dreams: the calloused hands, the unkempt beard, the worn shoes. But it was the eyes that impressed him most. They were deep as wells, carrying a compassion that seemed to have no limits. "You're the girl's father," said the man, and his voice was exactly like in the dream, hoarse but full of gentleness. Who are you?" "My name is John Xavier, and your daughter needs help." Michael felt the world spinning around him. "How do you know about her?" John smiled sadly. "Sometimes certain pains echo beyond what we can understand. Emily's pain reached me." "Are you a doctor? A therapist?" "No." John extended one of his hands, showing the calloused and marked palms. "I'm just someone who learned that suffering can be transformed into healing." Michael was torn between skepticism and desperate hope. "What do you want with my daughter?" "To help, if you'll allow it." At that moment, 2 security guards rounded the corner of the corridor. One of them pointed at John. "Hey you, it's the same guy from last night." Michael looked at John, then at the security guards who were rapidly approaching. He had only seconds to make a decision that could change everything. His rational mind screamed that this was madness, a stranger, possibly with mental problems, wanting to help his daughter. But something deeper, an intuition he had learned to ignore in his years as a pragmatic businessman, whispered that this encounter was no coincidence. "He's with me," Michael said, surprising himself. "Mr. Anderson?" The security guard hesitated. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. He's a specialist I called to evaluate my daughter's case." The security guards looked at each other, confused, but Michael's authority in the hospital was unquestionable. After years of financing equipment and donating to benefit campaigns, his word carried weight. "I only need a few minutes with her," John said when the security guards moved away. Michael opened the door to room 304, his fingers trembling on the doorknob. He was about to allow a complete stranger to approach his vulnerable daughter based only on dreams and intuitions. But for the first time in months, he felt that perhaps, just perhaps, a miracle was within reach. Room 304 had never seemed so sacred. Michael watched John Xavier approach Emily's bed with a reverence that touched his heart. The mysterious man removed his worn shoes and remained silent for a few seconds, as if asking permission from some higher power. "May I?" John looked at Michael, waiting for consent. Michael nodded, unable to speak. His throat was dry, his heart racing. Part of him screamed that this was madness, that he was allowing a stranger to touch his vulnerable daughter. But another part, the part that had dreamed of this moment for 3 consecutive nights, knew that this was exactly what needed to happen. John extended his calloused hands over Emily's forehead without initially touching her. Michael felt the air in the room change, as if a subtle energy began to circulate. There was no golden light or visible supernatural effects, just a deep calm that took over the environment. "She's trapped between 2 worlds," murmured John. His eyes closed in concentration. "Her spirit wants to return, but there's a pain keeping her away." "What kind of pain?" Michael asked in a whisper. "The pain of knowing that her father blames himself for what happened. She doesn't want to wake up because she doesn't want to see you suffer." The words hit Michael like a punch to the stomach. During all those months, he had carried the guilt of the accident like a stone in his chest. If he had left home 5 minutes later, if he had chosen another route, if he had driven more slowly in the rain. 1,000 ifs that tormented him every night. John finally touched Emily's forehead with his fingertips. What happened next defied everything Michael believed about the world. There was no bright light or celestial music, but an almost imperceptible warmth began to emanate from the touch. The monitors remained stable, But something changed in the girl's breathing. It became deeper, more natural. "Emily," John spoke directly to her, as if he knew she could hear him. "Your daddy needs you, and you need to know that his love is stronger than any guilt." Michael approached the bed, tears streaming down his face. "Princess, if you can hear me, Daddy forgives himself. Forgives himself for not being able to protect you. But I can't lose you. You're all I have." For a moment that seemed like eternity. Nothing happened. Then, almost imperceptibly, Emily's fingers moved, a subtle movement, but undeniable. Michael held his breath. "Did you see that?" he whispered to John. "I saw she's starting to come back." John kept his hands on Emily's forehead for a few more minutes, murmuring words in a language Michael didn't recognize. When he finally stepped away, he looked exhausted, as if he had transferred part of his own energy. "What did you do?" Michael asked, still holding his daughter's hand. "I just showed her that it's safe to return. The rest depends on her and the love between you two." At that moment, Dr. Richards entered the room for his night rounds and stopped abruptly when he saw John. "What's happening here?" "Doctor, this is John Xavier, a consultant I brought to evaluate Emily's case," Michael improvised. Dr. Richards frowned, clearly confused. "There's no consultation scheduled, and he doesn't look like a doctor." "I'm not a doctor," John calmly interrupted. "I'm just someone who understands a different kind of healing." "What kind of training do you have?" as Dr. Richards asked, visibly uncomfortable. "The training that life gave me." Michael realized the situation was becoming tense. "Dr. John just wanted to meet Emily. He was just leaving." Dr. Richards approached the monitors to check the vital signs. His expression changed immediately. "This is strange. Her brain activity has increased significantly in the last few minutes." "Is that good?" Michael asked, feigning surprise. "It's very good. In fact, it's the highest peak of activity we've recorded since she arrived here." Dr. Richards looked suspiciously at John. "Did you do something?" "I just talked to her. Sometimes children respond better to different voices." John headed for the door, but before leaving, he turned to Michael. "I'll come back tomorrow night, if you allow it. She needs more sessions to completely find her way back." "Wait," Michael followed him into the corridor. "How can I find you? Where do you live?" John smiled sadly. "You can't find me. I appear when I'm needed. But I have so many questions. And they will be answered at the right time. For now, know only this. Your daughter is special, and the love between you two is more powerful than any medicine." Michael watched John walk down the corridor until he disappeared around the corner. When he returned to the room, he found Dr. Richards still analyzing the monitors with a perplexed expression. "Michael, I need to be honest with you. I don't know what that man did, but Emily's signals are better than they've ever been. I'm going to request new tests for early tomorrow." Michael nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. He held Emily's hand again and whispered, "Come back to me, Princess. Daddy's here, waiting." And for the first time in 7 months, he had the absolute certainty that she could hear him. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We'll continue. The morning tests confirmed what Dr. Richards couldn't explain. Emily showed the highest brain activity since her hospitalization. Michael watched the doctors discuss the results with a mixture of hope and disbelief. For the first time in months, the words "significant improvement" were being pronounced in the same context as his daughter's name. "It's still too early for major conclusions," Dr. Richards cautioned, but there was a gleam of optimism in his eyes. "But if this trend continues, we might be looking at a faster recovery than we imagined." Michael nodded, but his mind was focused on John Xavier. Who was this man? How did he know so much about Emily without ever having seen her before? And most importantly, how had he managed to provoke an improvement that medicine hadn't achieved in 7 months? After the doctors left, Michael took out his laptop and began a meticulous investigation. He searched shelters, social assistance organizations, public records. The name John Xavier appeared on some lists of homeless people served by NGOs, but the information was scarce and outdated. Looking for someone? Julie had arrived with coffee and donuts, surprised to find her brother furiously typing. Trying to understand a Complicated situation. Michael hesitated before telling her about John's savior. He knew how the story would sound. Absurd, impossible, the product of a mind disturbed by pain. But he also couldn't deny the concrete results. Emily was better. Jayat Dao. You believe in miracles? He asked his sister. Julie laughed. Since when did you become mystical? The Michael I know believes in spreadsheets and quarterly reports. I'm serious. Julie's expression changed when she realized her brother's seriousness. Why are you asking this? Michael told her about the dreams, the encounter with John, Emily's sudden improvement. Julie listened in silence, occasionally frowning, but without interrupting him. Michael, she said carefully when he finished, you've been through a tremendous trauma. It's natural for your mind to look for alternative explanations to deal with the situation. You think I'm making this up? Not making it up, but perhaps interpreting coincidences as something more significant than they really are. Michael showed her the test results. How do you explain this? Julie analyzed the papers. She had a degree in psychology and had enough knowledge to understand the data. Brains in comas can show unexplained fluctuations. Maybe Emily was ready to improve, and it happened. Naturally, on the same night John touched her. Coincidence. Michael knew his sister was being rational, but something inside him rejected this explanation. He had felt the energy in the room, seen the subtle transformation in Emily's face. It wasn't coincidence. Around 3 in the afternoon, he decided to leave the hospital to investigate personally. He drove to downtown Portland, visiting shelters and gathering places for homeless people. He showed a photo he had managed to get from the hospital security cameras, a grainy but recognizable image of John. I know him, said a woman at the St. Francis shelter. He shows up from time to time but doesn't stay long. He's different from the others. Different how? More calm. People feel good around him. He has a special way with street kids. Michael felt a shiver. Do you know where I can find him? He appears when he wants to. Nobody's ever managed to track his movements. The same story was repeated at other locations. John's savior was known, but nobody could give concrete information about where he lived or how to contact him. It was as if he were a ghost who materialized when necessary. He returned to the hospital in the early evening, frustrated with his inconclusive investigation. He found activity in Emily's room, nurses checking equipment, Dr. Richards making notes. What happened? Michael asked, alarmed. Nothing bad, Dr. Richards reassured him. Actually, it's the opposite. Emily showed more signs of activity today. Small movements in her limbs, changes in facial expression. They're not yet conscious signs, but they definitely indicate progress. Michael approached the bed. Emily looked more alive. Her skin had a healthier color. He held her hand and whispered, Hi, Princess, Daddy's here. To his surprise, he felt a light pressure in response. It wasn't his imagination. Emily had squeezed his hand. Doctor, he called excitedly. She squeezed my hand. Dr. Richards approached and asked Michael to repeat the stimulus. Again, a soft but unmistakable pressure. This is excellent, the doctor smiled. These are the first signs of conscious response we've documented. Michael felt tears streaming down his face. So after months of despair, there was finally real hope. But he knew it wasn't coincidence. John's savior had promised to return that night, and Michael would be waiting. At 10 o'clock, he dismissed Julie and stayed alone in the room. He didn't have to wait long. Around midnight, he heard soft footsteps in the corridor. John appeared at the door as if he had been summoned by some invisible force. How did you know I needed to see you? Michael asked. The same way I knew Emily needed help, John replied, entering the room. Certain needs echo beyond the physical. Today she squeezed my hand. John smiled. She's finding her way back, but she still needs more help. What exactly do you do? How does it work? You wouldn't believe me if I explained. Try me. After what I saw yesterday, I'm willing to believe anything. John approached Emily's bed. Sometimes, when we go through certain experiences, we develop the ability to connect with energies that others can't perceive. It's as if we had access. to different frequencies of reality. What kind of experiences? John paused, his eyes revealing an old pain, the kind that teaches that life is more mysterious and precious than we ever imagined. John positioned himself beside Emily's bed, with the same reverence as the night before. This time Michael observed every detail, the way John breathed deeply before starting, how his shoulders relaxed, how an expression of peace took over his weather-marked face. "May I ask a question?" Michael whispered, as John extended his hands. "Over Emily." "You may. Did you ever have children?" John paused for a moment, his hands trembling slightly. "I had a daughter, Sophie. She would be Emily's age today." "Would be. She passed away a few years ago. An accident, too." Michael felt his chest tighten. "I'm so sorry. It was after that I discovered this ability. The pain opened me to frequencies I couldn't perceive before." John gently touched Emily's forehead. "Pain has the power to connect us with deeper realities." The room again filled with that subtle energy. Michael watched Emily's face relax even more, as if she were being lulled by an inaudible song. "Sophie is at peace now," John murmured, more to himself than to Michael. "And she helps me take care of other children who need it." "Do you believe that those who have passed on remain with us?" "I believe that love is stronger than any physical barrier, and that certain missions continue even after departure." Michael observed a tear run down John's face. It was the first time he had seen real emotion from this usually serene man. "Emily is dreaming," John said suddenly. "She's in a beautiful place, full of flowers. There's a girl with her with curly hair who's showing her the way back." "Sophie?" "She's helping Emily not to be afraid to wake up." At that moment, something extraordinary happened. Emily murmured something incomprehensible, but they were definitely words. Michael moved closer, his heart racing. "What did she say?" "She said she saw an angel that looked like her but older." Michael held Emily's hand, and this time the response was stronger. She squeezed his fingers and slightly turned her head toward his voice. "Princess, can you hear me?" Emily's lips moved again, forming an almost inaudible word. "Daddy." Michael collapsed in tears. They were his daughter's first conscious words in 7 months. John continued with his hands over her, but now smiled through his own tears. "She's coming back," said John, "but she needs one more session. Tomorrow will be the last." "The last? Why?" "Because my mission with her will be complete, and I need to move on." "Move on to where?" John moved away from the bed, looking more exhausted than the other times. "To where I need to go. There are other children who need help." "But I have so many questions. About you, about this ability, about Sophie." "The most important answers you already have. Emily is coming back because the love between you two created a bridge strong enough for her to cross. The rest are just details." John headed for the door, but Michael followed him. "John, wait. How can I thank you?" "By taking good care of Emily, and when she grows up, teaching her that the world has more mysteries and magic than most people can see." "Will you disappear as you appeared?" John smiled. "I don't disappear. I just go where I'm needed, but part of me will always stay here in this room, in this hospital, where a father found hope again." Michael watched John walk down the corridor until he disappeared. He returned to the room and found Emily with her eyes slightly open, focusing with difficulty. "Princess?" he whispered, approaching. Diddy." Her voice was hoarse but clear. "I'm here, my love. I've always been here. I dreamed about an angel." She said, "You were sad. I'm not sad anymore. You've come back to me. Sorry, it took so long." Michael laughed and cried at the same time. "You don't need to apologize. What matters is that you're here." Dr. Richards came running after being called by the nurses. He found Emily awake, talking quietly with her father. His expression mixed scientific disbelief with genuine joy. "This is impossible," he murmured, checking her vital signs. Recoveries like this don't happen overnight. Sometimes they do, Michael said, holding his daughter's hand firmly, when there's enough love. Dr. Richards shook his head, still perplexed. I'll need to run a complete battery of tests. This will rewrite everything we know about cases, like hers. But Michael wasn't interested in scientific explanations. He was interested only in the miracle before his eyes. His daughter awake, talking, weakly smiling. "Dad," Emily whispered, "who was the man who visited me in my dreams?" "An angel," Michael answered without hesitation. "An angel who watched over you until you were ready to come back. He said he has a daughter in heaven." "He does, and she must be very proud of her daddy." Emily closed her eyes, but this time it was just natural sleep. Michael remained by her side, knowing his daughter had crossed back over the bridge between two worlds, guided by the love of a stranger who had lost his own daughter and transformed his pain into a healing mission. Morning arrived with a different clarity. Michael woke up in the armchair next to Emily's bed and, for the first time in months, didn't feel the familiar weight of hopelessness upon opening his eyes. His daughter slept deeply, but it was a natural, restorative sleep. The monitors showed stable and strong vital signs. Dr. Richards arrived early, accompanied by a team of specialists. News of Emily's miraculous recovery had spread through the hospital, attracting medical curiosity. Everyone wanted to understand how a child in a deep coma for 7 months had regained consciousness so quickly. "Michael," Dr. Richards said while examining Emily, "I need to be honest with you. In 30 years of medicine, I've never seen anything like this. The neurological exams show completely normal brain activity. It's as if she had never been in a coma." "Miracles happen," Michael replied simply. "Miracles or not, I'll need to document everything meticulously. This case could change how we understand neurological recovery." Emily woke up around 10 in the morning, more alert than the night before. She smiled when she saw her father and extended her arms for a hug. Michael embraced her, delicately, feeling life pulsing strongly in her small body. "How are you feeling, Princess?" "Better, but still a little tired." Her voice was stronger. "Dad, where is the dream man?" "What man, sweetheart?" "The bearded gentleman who came to visit me. He said he would come back today to say goodbye." Michael felt a tightness in his chest. John had mentioned that it would be the last visit. "He will come, Princess, but maybe it's to say goodbye." Why does he have to go away? How to explain the complexity of that situation to an 8-year-old child? Because he helps other sick children, like he helped you. Is he a doctor? He's a special kind of doctor, a doctor of the heart. Julie arrived at noon, carrying flowers and Emily's favorite teddy bear. When she saw her niece awake and smiling, she broke down in tears of joy. "My princess, how I missed you!" Emily became animated when she saw her aunt, telling her about her dreams and about the angel who had helped her. Julie looked questioningly at Michael, but he just smiled. "Sometimes children have a sharper perception than adults," he said discreetly to his sister. The day passed in an atmosphere of contained celebration. Doctors took turns examining Emily, all perplexed by her recovery. Nurses who had cared for her for months came to greet her, some crying with emotion. When night came, Michael knew John would appear. He asked Julie to take Emily for a snack in the hospital cafeteria, wanting to have a few minutes alone with the mysterious man. John arrived around 8 o'clock, but this time he looked different. His clothes were still simple and worn, but there was a lightness in his walk, as if an enormous weight had been lifted from his shoulders. "She's well," John said, entering the empty room. "Thanks to you. Thanks to the love between you two. I just helped remove the obstacles." "John, I need to know, are you really a human being like you? Just someone who learned to channel pain in a different way?" "How can I learn this too?" John smiled sadly. "I hope you never need to. This ability is born from losses that no one should experience." Michael hesitated before asking the next question. "Sophie, was she really with Emily in the dreams?" John's eyes filled with tears. "Love doesn't end with physical separation. Sophie found a way to continue helping children through me." And yesterday she was able to guide Emily back to you. Is she at peace now? She is, and I can finally be at peace too. At that moment, Emily came running back to the room, followed by Julie. When she saw John, her eyes lit up. You came to say goodbye. I did, little one, but before I go, I want to give you a gift. John knelt in front of Emily and gently touched her heart. This is the gift of courage, so you'll never be afraid to move forward, even when things get difficult. Will, I'll see your daughter now. John smiled, surprised by the girl's perception. I'll meet her, and I'll tell her how brave you were. Tell her she has a very kind daddy. I will. John stood up and turned to Michael. Take good care of her, and remember, the world has more mysteries and magic than you imagine. Don't let rationalism blind you to the possibilities. How can I find you if I need to? You don't need me anymore. You have everything you need here. John pointed to Emily. And here. He touched Michael's chest, over his heart. John said goodbye with a wave and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned one last time. Michael, there's one last thing. In the coming months, you'll have opportunities to help other families who are going through what you went through. When that happens, remember how you felt and extend your hand. How will I know when it's time? You'll know, the heart always knows. John left the room, and this time Michael didn't follow him. He knew it was a final farewell. He knelt down to hug Emily, who was still looking toward the door. I'm going to miss him, she said. Me too, Princess. But he left us with what's most important. What's that? Each other, and the certainty that love is stronger than anything. Emily nodded with the peculiar wisdom of children. Dad, can I sleep in my bed at home tomorrow? Michael laughed, tears of joy running down his face. Yes, my love, you can sleep in your bed, play with your toys, and we'll never be separated again. That night, Michael dreamed of Sophie, a curly-haired girl who smiled and waved, whispering, "Thank you," before disappearing into a golden light. When he woke up, he knew that John Xavier had found his peace. 6 months later, Michael watched Emily playing in the garden at home, her laughter echoing through the morning air of Portland. The girl had recovered completely, with no after-effects from the long period in a coma. For the doctors, it remained an inexplicable mystery. For Michael, it was simply a miracle that he had learned to accept without questioning. Dad, look what I drew! Emily ran to him, holding a paper full of vibrant colors. It was a drawing of 2 figures, a girl and a bearded man, walking together toward a golden light. In the upper corner, a smaller third figure watched and smiled. Who are these people, Princess? Mr. John and Sophie, and this one is me when I was sleeping. Sophie showed me the way back to you. Michael carefully kept the drawing. In recent months, Emily had made dozens of similar drawings, always representing her experience during the coma, as a journey guided by protective angels. The phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was Dr. Richards. Michael, I have a situation here at the hospital. A family is going through something similar to what you went through. The parents are desperate, and I remembered what you said about wanting to help other families. Michael felt his heart quicken. These were John's words coming true. You'll know when it's time. Tell me more. A 10-year-old boy, bicycle accident, in a coma for 3 months. The parents are a young couple, first child. You understand? I understand. Perfectly. Can I speak with them? They would love to talk to someone who went through the same situation. After hanging up, Michael knelt in front of Emily. Princess, Daddy needs to help a family whose little boy is sleeping like you were. Would you like to come with me? Can I draw for him? Sophie told me that drawings help children who are lost. Of course you can. At the hospital, Michael met Sarah and Robert Thompson, a couple in their 30s, embracing in the pediatric corridor. Their faces carried the same expression of despair and exhaustion that he knew so well. Dr. Richards said you went through something similar, Sarah said with a choked voice. Our daughter was in a coma for 7 months, Michael replied, sitting next to them. I know exactly how you're feeling. How did you bear it? How did you maintain hope? Michael looked at Emily, who was coloring a new drawing. There were moments when I thought I wouldn't make it, but I learned that love is stronger than despair, and that sometimes miracles happen when we least expect them. Robert shook his head. The doctors say the chances are minimal. Doctors said the same thing about Emily. But she's here, isn't she? Michael held the couple's hands. I'm not saying it will be easy, nor that the outcome will be the same, but I can tell you that you're not alone. Emily approached and handed her drawing to Sarah. It was an image of a boy running in a flowery field with two luminous figures by his side. This is for your little boy, said Emily, so he knows he has angels watching over him. Sarah broke down in tears, hugging Emily. Thank you, sweetheart, I'll put it in his room. In the following months, Michael became a constant presence at the hospital, not only visiting Peter Thompson, but also other families in similar situations. He created an informal support group, financed improvements in the pediatric wing, and established a fund for underprivileged families with hospitalized children. Emily frequently accompanied him, always carrying colorful drawings that she distributed to other hospitalized children. The doctors began to notice that patients who received her visits showed signs of faster improvement. It's as if she carries a special energy, a nurse commented to Dr. Richards. Maybe she does, he replied, watching Emily cheerfully talking with a girl in a wheelchair. Some children who go through traumatic experiences develop a special sensitivity to help others. Peter Thompson woke from his coma after 4 months, not as quickly as Emily, but much sooner than the doctors had predicted. Sarah was convinced that Emily's drawings and Michael's conversations had made the difference. One night, 6 months after John Saviour's last visit, Michael was in his home office when Emily appeared at the door. Dad, can I tell you a secret? Of course, Princess. Sometimes I still dream about Sophie and Mr. John. They tell me that other daddies and mommies need help. Michael smiled. It didn't surprise him that his daughter maintained this special connection. And what else do they say? That you're doing very important work and that Mr. John is proud of you. Did he really say that? He did. And he also said that when I grow up, I'll help sick children like doctors do. Would you like that? Very much. I want to take care of children who are lost, like I was. Michael hugged his daughter, knowing that the experience that had almost destroyed them had, paradoxically, given them a greater purpose. Emily was no longer just his daughter. She was a small ambassador of hope, carrying with her the light that John Saviour had kindled in their lives. 2 years later, when Michael's support group had already helped more than 50 families, he received an unexpected letter. It was from a small town in Oregon, signed by a woman named Claire. Mr. Anderson, I heard about your work through a family you helped. I'd like to tell you about my brother, John Saviour. He disappeared a few years ago after losing his daughter Sophie in an accident. We never knew what happened to him until I read your story in the newspaper. The description you gave of him is exact. John always had a special gift with children. After the tragedy, he said he needed to find a way to transform his pain into something positive. It seems he succeeded. If you meet him again, tell him Claire is well and understands why he needed to follow his path. Michael carefully kept the letter. He finally had confirmation that John Saviour was real, human, with a family who loved him. But this didn't diminish the mystery. It only confirmed that some people are capable of transforming their deepest pain into healing instruments for others. That night, as he put Emily to bed, she asked one last question. Dad, do you think we'll see Mr. John again? I don't know, Princess, but I know he's out there, helping other families like he helped ours. Is he happy now? Very happy. Because he found Sophie again. Emily smiled and closed her eyes. That's good. Everyone deserves to be with those they love. Michael turned off the light and stayed watching his daughter sleep. Outside, Portland continued its nightlife, full of people with their joys and sorrows, their fears and hopes. Somewhere in that city, or perhaps in another, John Saviour continued his silent mission, transforming pain into healing, despair into hope. And in the Pearl District home, a rebuilt family slept in peace, knowing there were forces in the world greater than spreadsheets and contracts, more powerful than logic and reason. Forces that had simple names: love, faith, and the infinite capacity of a human heart to reinvent itself after the greatest of losses. Emily's miracle hadn't ended at the hospital. It had expanded to touch dozens of other lives, creating a network of hope that would continue to grow, like circles in water, touching people who didn't even know the story of the businessman who learned that not everything can be controlled, and of the girl who was guided back to life by an angel disguised as a homeless man. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like.